If there are any sorts of alignments that can be restored when it comes to the relationship dynamics between men and women, it is simply understanding the trajectory on which we are each on as really as different genders. Because at this point, men are on a certain timeline toward a certain trajectory, women are on a certain timeline heading toward a certain trajectory. Women want men to be consumed by their timeline, and men just want women to cooperate with theirs, which leads me to suggest that perhaps there's something more to be understood here. Perhaps there's something more to be learned in regard to why we are on the trajectory that we are, because it's simply about the structural integrity of the foundation in which we are moving toward a collapse in our timeline or not. And what I mean by this is that we are heading toward a certain spot in space and time in which men and women have instinctually understood that neither of us can survive. And yet we're also to the point in which we don't know how to correlate and contrast with one another. So I think it's important to understand how exactly we can solve this issue, because it's just not going to work today between men and women. The way that things are going, it's just not going to work. So what I'm proposing is that we encourage high libido without perversion. So I made this post in the Regal Change Academy recently, and I wanted to go over this because I think that this is going to be one of the aspects in which we can solve the problem of the trajectories in which we're on for men and women. Because a lot of people want to talk about the problem, and it's important to address the problem, but if we're just talking about the problem to the problem and then we're going to blame each other, nothing's really going to happen. So I think it's important to understand what exactly high libido can actually do to solve the issue. So, what is high libido? Well, a high libido is a signal. You can think about it as a node, right? A psychological and psychophysiological node that signals a strong archetypal presence and a high pattern recognition. Okay, so when you're able to understand the depth of your own archetype, when you're able to understand the depth of your own pattern recognition, you're more connected to your intuition, you're more connected to your instincts, etc. But you're not as attached to outcomes, okay, because you're on a timeline in which you recognize that anything can really happen if you really want it to. Because this is what happens when you have high libido in alignment. You have rapid career or project manifestation, and I'm going to come up with new terms for manifestation, okay? Because I don't like the necessarily term for this. I'm more thinking about it as like as an activation of an unconscious timeline, but I'll get more into that another time. You'll have more magnetic relationships. You're going to have spiritual archetypal breakthroughs, and you're going to have an experiential richness and novelty of life. That's what high libido and alignment in your spirit looks like. And well, what does low libido and misalignment look like? Well, low libido and misalignment equals a repeated failing of relationships. It equals a loss of money or opportunities, emotional burnout or stagnation or self-sabotage. Okay. So when you are operating on a low libido and you're misaligned, well, look around you. We have, and you could be in a high libido, but also have misalignment still. Okay, think about all the Bonely Cans women out there and all the men who are addicted to corn, right? These are men who are absolutely and utterly infatuated with the projection of the eternal image of the feminine beauty, and yet they're pedestalizing it and they're not in relationship properly to God and to Christ himself. So they are operating, even if they have a high libido, they're still misaligned. So you can have a high libido and be misaligned, and you can have a low libido and be misaligned. You can even have a low libido and be aligned, spiritually speaking, but that's not going to come later, until you're maybe in your 70s or 80s, uh, hopefully anyway. I think that it's healthy to have a healthy, strong libido up until your 50s and 60s for sure. It's only after that that you really kind of chill, because you're just to the point in which you don't really feel the need to keep doing that. Of course, I don't think it's a bad thing to have that high libido in alignment, because I think, again, the antidote here that we're looking for is high libido in alignment, because that's what most men and women are missing today. Most women have high libido, but they are not aligned at all. And most men have high libido, but they're not aligned at all. Or actually, I would venture to say that most men have a low libido now, and they have low testosterone now, which leads to a low libido and naturally leads to a misalignment, especially for a man. Okay. Now think about what a misaligned libido results in. Okay. It results in an energy block or an energy lock, and it results in energy not being directed. Okay. You're just kind of floating in timeless, not in timelessness, but maybe timefulness, because, oh, yeah, that's exactly the way to put it. So you're not experiencing timelessness. You're experiencing timefulness in the sense that you're locked into time. You're blocked in time. You're on a blockchain, so to speak, right? Think about that for a second with the blockchain in regard to finances, but that's another video. So energy's not being directed either, okay? Which ultimately this leads to a timeline of frustration, disassociation, and stagnation. Think about where everybody is at nowadays. They're all on a timeline of frustration, disassociation, and stagnation. Most of the women are frustrated with most of the men, and most of the men are frustrated with most of the women. We can't keep doing this forever. We just simply can't. We can't keep doing all of these things for no reason all the time, forever and ever. Like, we have to think about the problem here and how to actually solve the problem. We can't keep trying to diagnose the problem. We know the problem, like we know the diagnosis. Now it's about how do we get to the point in which we can be more aligned. Well, that's a little bit more tricky. And why is it more tricky? Well, because you have to merge the individual time with the event time, as well as the overall compatibility of the soul within those times. So, because there's going to be multiple types of time that we're looking at here. And I think that the only way that we can truly move forward is to think about how we maneuver through our relationships and navigate the interface of relationships differently. And it's really sad to see, it's really sad to see. And it's so frustrating because I've said this a while ago. I said how women are so hell bent on, and even think about that, right? Like, think about why women are hell bent. They're trying to bend the fabric of reality, right? They're trying to bend hellishness for the sake of it. Like, that's what they're doing. And it's like they're trying to sell men, they're trying to sell us something that we just don't want. And it's like, you're not the seller here that you think you are. Okay, you're not a salesman, woman. You're just not. And I think that it's really terrible for a lot of men to be told that, okay, well, first of all, you can't say anything bad about women. Have you ever noticed that? Like, the second that we start to critique women as men, and it's not even the fact that we're critiquing them because we're like hurt. Okay, it's just that we're critiquing them because we see that there's an issue and there's a way that they're not taking accountability. Now, it's not to say, of course, that men have their issues too. It's not to say that. But the problem is that most men know how to take accountability, even if they don't like it. They don't like the accountability, but they know it, and they'll just be shamed by their own accountability. But they don't know how to do much about it after that. That's the real issue that we're going to be struggling with and challenged with, I would say, with men going forward, is that they're on a pattern of continually pedestalizing the eternal image of the feminine in a way that completely contradicts who they are as men. And it completely contradicts what they are as men and why they are as men. And so women are telling men, okay, well, I have this uh, long sleeve graphic t shirt, or excuse me, I have this long sleeve graphic shirt that I want to sell you. And then the man is like, well, I want a plain white t shirt. I just want a plain white t shirt. I don't want anything else. And the woman says, well, no, I don't have that, but I can give you this. And the man's like, well, I don't want that. And she's like, well, no, but you have to have my graphic long sleeve t-shirt. And the man's like, no, that's not what I want. Right? Like we as men, if we know what we want, women, it's not your job to try to sell us something different. If we know what we want, then we're going to make you into who we need you to be, or you're going to go somewhere else. And men have to have that mindset too. Men have to have the mindset that if she's not going to be who she's going to be, and she's not going to be who she needs to be for me, she's going to go somewhere else. The problem is that most men have such a scarcity mindset because they've been conditioned to believe this. Men have unintentionally, maybe somewhat intentionally, but unintentionally put themselves on a timeline which offers themselves to be consumed by the Oedipal mother archetype, so to speak. And this is a big problem. This is a big problem because when you do that as a man, you are inherently giving over your manhood for no reason, and you're betraying yourself for no reason. So, well, what do you do about that? What do you do about that, and why do you do anything about it? Well, because do you want to be in control of your own life, at least that which you can control, or not? Okay, it goes back to the high libido thing, right? We're going to bring this back up. So it goes back to the high libido. You need a high libido, okay? Are you going to be able to be aligned in that high libido as well? Because you can have a high libido, but if you're not aligned, it means nothing. Do you want magnetic relationships? Do you want a better career or a better way of life or finances? Do you want spiritual insights? Do you want archetypal breakthroughs? Do you want to have these richness of experiences? Do you want to know how rich your spirit truly can be? Or are you going to keep watching the corn and worshiping the pink palace? I mean, it's just that simple, right? And women, do you want to keep doing the bonely cans and being admired and not even admired, you're just desired? You just love feeling desired so much that you can't let go of it. Well, you're not aligned. It's just not the case. You're not aligned. You're living in a fake fantasy land. You are literally living on a fake timeline that goes nowhere fast. You are leading to a timeline of frustration, disassociation, and stagnation for no reason other than your pride. And that's a really tough thing to swallow for a lot of people, especially a lot of women. And, this is the antidote. I hope that you all take this to be something that can actually be useful, and meditate on this. Okay. Meditate on how you can actually start to be more aligned in your life. There are certain things where you are not aligned, and it depends entirely upon your openness to the truth, to live the truth, your openness to live the truth. Are you open to live the truth, or are you not? Because if you're open to live the truth, then it should be just about living the truth. Okay. Do you want to be living the truth, or do you want to keep living a falsehood and hiding? You're not even living the falsehood. You're hiding behind a smokescreen in falsehood, just telling yourself that it's real. You're defending a costume, right? You're defending a costume, and you can keep defending that costume, or you can decide that there's more to this life, and you can decide that maybe I'm worth a little bit more than jacking off to corn. Maybe I'm worth a little bit more than playing with myself while watching pixels on a screen, watching a blue light of another man ramming through a woman who's already been do you realize how sadistic and masochistic you have to be to watch corn and be addicted to corn. Like vices are one thing, right? But it's another thing entirely to sin. Because when you're sinning, what you're really doing is you're telling yourself, you're ultimately leading yourself toward a collapse in your own timeline. You're leading yourself to a collapse in your own timeline for nothing. For nothing. You're leading yourself toward a place in which there is no coherent factor for you to even want to live. That's sin. For all intents and purposes, that's sin. And you know it. You know it. You just don't want to admit it to yourself. And maybe you have admitted it to yourself, right? Maybe you have told yourself that this is what it is, but you don't want to admit it to yourself. Well, why don't you want to admit it to yourself? Well, because then you have to actually do something about it, or you just know that you're living in hell for no reason. And that's tough. I get it. I get it. That's a tough thing. But this is why you have to develop a godlike savage mindset or a godlike mastery mindset. Okay. This is why you need these types of mindsets here. Belief isn't going to help you, though. Belief is not going to help you in this instance. Belief, now it can go very far, right? It can help you very far and it can go very far. But what you need to do is to actually treat yourself, like actually have the behavior change that you yourself are worth taking care of and worth respecting more. Why? Well, because, dude and woman, whoever it is that's watching this, you're a divine immortal soul and you are an interdimensional being, and you want to just use the time that you have with this life when you don't even know if there's going to be another for sure. Like, you want to just be nothing. Like, you want to treat yourself as nothing and be nothing. Now look, there's a difference between being nothing in the enlightened spiritual sense and being nothing in regard to like seeing yourself as worthless. Okay, because that's the duality thing that we can get more into another time. But the point is that you all have a choice to make, and I've given you the antidote. The antidote is there. Now the choice is up to you whether or not you want to actually do anything about it or not. Because we can keep talking about the issues, we can keep talking about the problem, but I'm interested in actually solving the problem through structures and mechanisms in which can optimize and change behavior for the better of existence. And if you're not interested in that, that's fine. But this is not, number one, it's not the channel for you. Number two, I don't know why you would continue to even want to live. I really don't. Like, I'm not saying you should go kill yourself or anything like that, but I'm saying, like, why would you want to live in a world where you're not living in truth? Because you know that it's fake. You know that it's fake. There's something more real than ever, and it's right there. It's always been there. It's not even there. It's there. So I hope that this message was useful and insightful for you. I hope that you all stay blessed. Peace be with you all. Until next time.